Oh, we're going
Okay, here
live.
we are. We're live. We're here, Tim. Welcome, everyone. It is noon on Thursday, which means it's time for this week's episode of Real Estate Recess. It's been a big week, and there's no other guest I wanted to have this week than my friend Tim, who's in Iowa. Tim, why don't you introduce yourself to the people watching?
Yeah, my name is Tim Scheib. I'm in central Iowa. Des Moines is the capital of the state. Um, Not a huge place in terms of big cities, but we've got quite a bit of good things happening around Des Moines, and I've been selling real estate for 20 years. I'm with Remax Precision and having a great time.
Awesome. That's awesome. I hope I said Iowa. I feel like I said, did I say Iowa? Did I
Yeah,
botch
you
the
did.
intro? I did.
Nope, I
Okay,
would have
good.
noticed.
You would have been like, no, hold on. It's not. It's Iowa. Perfect. Well, this week, wanted to talk about a few things. Monday was a big day in the United States. The inauguration happened. We have a new president. And obviously at the forefront of people's minds, there's been a lot of executive orders signed this week and a lot of discussion about what Trump's presidency is going to mean. And we're in real estate. And I thought, well, gee, we should really talk about how President Trump is going to impact the housing world, because that's something we live in every single day and advise clients on things every single day. So we're going to talk about that. Then we're going to talk about millennials. Yes, millennials, we just never seem to get a break. Everybody wants to talk about us, good, bad, or ugly. So we have some information because apparently millennials are struggling to find affordable housing, and they're willing to make some concessions, which means they're willing to give some things up. So we're going to talk about that and some other things that are in store. So yeah, here we are, Tim. It is the Thursday after a new president has taken office. So let's just get to the chase. In your opinion, what do you think Trump is going to do to impact the housing market in the United States as a whole?
Well, I can say this. I know there's going to be a difference, and I've said that it doesn't matter who would have won the presidency. The real estate market, whenever there's a slump in the real estate market, it typically lasts about 18 months. And we're sitting on what, 2 years now, where it's just been kind of just a really lull in the market. So I really
Mm-hmm.
think just closure on getting this over with was going to help no matter what. But obviously, we face affordability, we face the interest rate issue, we face inventory. I mean, there's a lot of problems right now that are working against us. But you tell me if you felt the same in the comments, whatever. Tell me if you felt once the election was over, there was a pickup in the market. Slowed down a little
Mm-hmm.
bit due to the holidays, but now that inauguration's over, this week has been really busy for me.
Oh,
Have you
wow.
seen that?
I haven't quite seen that. And it's interesting. So Tim and I are both in the same coaching program and had a meeting with my coach last week. And he wanted to know, because he tries to gauge what's going on with his coaching clients throughout the whole country. And he asked me if I had seen an increase in activity, real estate activity with clients, or if I had seen things just kind of staying the same. And I don't think it's been a tremendous uptick. And he says that depending on if it's a red or a blue state, he said it's interesting. Blue states seem to tend to be a little quieter, a little bit more held back, whereas red states are like the faucet turned on, the light switch, all the lights are on, everybody's out, and they're getting their real estate stuff going already like bonkers for 2025. So I don't know. Maybe that's the difference. Iowa, is Iowa a red state?
Very, very red. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe there's something about that because I'm in Oregon, and here it's a blue state, and so maybe there's something to be said about that. It's kind of anecdotal at this point, obviously not an official study, but it's just an
Yeah.
interesting thought that on a state by state basis, just
It
depending
matters. Yeah.
people's confidence or their opinion of how things turned out for them with the election, how that could dictate what they're going to be doing with some of these big ticket purchases this year.
Yeah, I had three listings and a couple buyers that have just been sitting there forever. And I'm like, why aren't these selling?
Hmm.
And I sold five houses in the last 7 days. So like
That's amazing.
just like all of a sudden they're gone. I got a coworker who's had a house listed for probably 6 to 8 months and it just sold over the last couple days. So like there's a lot of
Wow.
yeah, and we're down quite a bit on our inventory too, which means that more are going out the door than coming onto the market.
Hmm. Yeah. Well, that makes me feel hopeful that maybe if it's, I mean, and I think that my personal business, my book of business as an agent, that's moving along, and I think things are picking up. But by and large, it's just interesting to see what will happen. But in terms of actual things, there's a couple articles which I thought were pretty interesting, and definitely tell me what you think. There's a couple different articles talking about specific looking to do. So this article is from easily find this yourself, and watching this is according to Yahoo Finance, and so let's go through and see what they say. This is according to them, there are 4 ways that Trump's win could affect the housing market in 2025. So this is just from the 16th, so right before the inauguration happened. So this is what their opinion is of what could be coming. One thing that I read about this week in light of all the orders that he signed this week, or things that have been discussed, one of them was alleviating roadblocks in construction and development. Tim, do you see that being something that Trump can positively impact? And will that actually help kind of the inventory stalemate that we're in your opinion, or kind of based on your experience and what you see?
So I know that he ran on getting rid of regulations. And when you look at the regulations that are out there, if you talk to any builder or developer, there's so many regulations that really hinder what they're trying to accomplish. And one of the major things is price. One of the things I look at, like resale homes base their pricing on new construction. New construction base their pricing on availability, supply and demand, and all of that kind of stuff. So with new construction, if you get rid of some of those regulations, you eliminate.
Sorry, that was just my mom. She's adorable. I have tea. This is the one I went to get when I fixed the internet, and this is the one I made because I forgot the other one. So I have 2. She's sweet. Perfect. She just brought. That's what that was. Sorry for the interruption, everyone.
All good. So with getting rid of some of those regulations out there that either cause a delay or actually affect the price of the home, because I know, sorry, I'm going off topic a little bit, but with like a relocation company, they make us push a lot of paper. They make us do all these extra things that really don't matter, but they have people in places they have to pay. So those people say, hey, we need you to do this. Well, you get rid of some of those regulations, you get rid of the paper pushing and the extra money that you have to spend. It can really help with the cost to build the house. And the builders are going to pass those costs on to the buyers. So when you get rid of those costs, the savings stay with the buyers. You might think, oh, the builder's going to gouge them and make more money. Well, that's what competition's all about, because there's going to be a couple of those builders that want to sell their house that won't. Well, then the other people have to adjust down. So if in the end of the day, like getting rid of some of those regulations on the development side, that's going to reduce the cost of the land. The reduce the cost of the land is going to reduce the cost of the house. If they get rid of some of the regulations I know in 2020, he made comments about the housewives are going to love his getting rid of the regulations that are on dishwashers. Well, I'm not a housewife, and I would really appreciate that. So my dishwasher actually dries my dishes, right? So by getting rid of some of those things out there that hinder the construction, that cost more money, that get in the way, at the end of the day, I think it's actually a good thing. Now, if you're on board with the Green New Deal, and some of the Democrats won't like that because it might not be the perfect thing for, the not economy, but you know what I'm trying to say.
The environment.
The environment. I knew it started with an E, but if you're not, it might
something
not be
like that.
Best. Yeah, it might not be the best for the environment, but at the end of the day, like, do you want a house or not? Like, you got to come to terms with it.
Totally. And I think that's interesting too, is whatever we can do on a national level and how that's going to trickle down to the local level, which is what we both work in and operate in every day. And in a hyper local sense, how that's going to impact us. And I know one of the biggest things that that I hear people talk about and experience daily with dealing with new construction or with people who want to build on land they buy is the permitting and dealing with the municipality, the city, the county, whatever it is, where they have to file for the permits, and the sheer amount of time that that takes to get those permits, to get all that stuff sorted out. I mean, there's a time and a cost factor to that. So if we're talking about a builder that is coming into an area knowing that it's going to take them 6 months to get permitting and to get those things going, that has an adverse cost on the consumer. And yes, it takes time to prep the land and make those plans. So the more time it takes is the more time that builder's carrying loans on land and paying interest. And that doesn't come for free to a consumer. They're just not going to say, oh, we like people. We're just not, we're going to just take it on the chin. That's not how it works. Any individual that works a job isn't going to take a pay cut from their employer because they just don't, oh, we're just, feel like not paying you what we said we'd pay you. That's just, nobody would want that to happen to them. So that's I see that as being a stumbling block. And so I'm curious to see where these other federal regulations are concerned, how those can trickle down and on a local level, if there's any meaningful impact made. So I don't know. It'll be really interesting to see what happens in that respect.
And how long that will take. That's the thing I'm more interested to see is like, how long will it take for him to be able to push these things through? Because so many people are going to get in the way. It's just going to be, I mean, his entire presidency the last time were people getting in the way and not allowing him to lead because they tied him up with so much other stuff. So will they get out of his way and let him do what he needs to do, or are they going to push back so hard that he can never get it done within his presidency? And then the next president comes in and just strikes it all, kind of like he just did all Biden's plans.
Right.
It's always a back and forth. Like, does anything ever?
I know it's so. I know it's like and that's in that too. I mean, we don't have to dig too deep into the partisan politics side of things, but at the end of the day, you just hope that whatever's done is truly for the good of most people. The large majority of Americans who are, in a sense, they're struggling right now. I mean, housing affordability is at an all-time low. Interest rates and where they're at, which historically are not high, but coupled with where housing prices have been over the last few years, that just has made it very difficult for somebody who's buying a home for the first time. Out here in my area, Canby, in my town, it's like we have anything under $500,000 is considered a first-time buyer price point, which blows my mind because going on almost 10 years ago, we bought our house we're in now, and we paid $369,000, and we about fell over and wanted to have a heart attack because that was so much money, like $369,000. And then I look at what you can buy for $369,000 today, and it's next to nothing out in my area. What's it like where you're at? Just to compare, because I know Iowa is totally different than Oregon, but what is a first-time home buyer price point where you're at?
Anywhere from $250 to $400. I mean, it's you can find like just say a split level that's 1,300 square foot with a 2-car garage, vinyl siding, oak trim, built 2000 to 2010. You can find something like that for around $275, maybe $300.
Wow.
So, and 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms, not a bad deal at all. But those also used to be $200 to $225.
Sure.
So but the thing that gets me about where you're at in, let's say, California and some of those bigger markets, they still have to afford the same payment that someone here, because you get the same rate.
Right.
So like, I can't like people buying $1 million homes because that's all that's available in California. I'm like, they still have to afford that. Like
they still do. Yes.
Are their wages that much greater there? Well,
and that's so here I figure, gosh, now that I'm talking about this, I want to know. I'm going to let's just look up Portland, Oregon median income. So according to this, household income for Portland, Oregon, based on the 2022 census, is $85,876. Now, for those watching, anybody can go out and Google that and get that information. So $85,000 is the median household income. So the middle of the road. Half the people make more, half the people make less in the area. Tim, your camera's going to power off.
Yeah, I don't know why it's doing that. Sorry about that.
Hey,
I
we're
just have to
doing this
keep reaching
live,
up
people.
there. Yeah, right? This thing
This is
hasn't
how it
done this
goes. Oh
ever.
my gosh.
It's just today.
It's
Well, I
so
unplugged
funny.
it because I had another podcast and I used actual
Uh-huh.
cameras. Now I'm sitting with this
Yeah.
one and it keeps doing that. But anyway, ours here is
Anyway, that's
73.
okay.
Ours
So
here
it's
is 73.
lower, but not that much different. And
Did you
considering,
go
for the
household?
10th, that was household. That was for
Okay, same.
everybody.
Yep.
So not so the individual is 45 and 45,000, and household is 85,000 for Portland, Oregon. So just to use that as a basis for that. So what is that? 12,000, let's call it $10,000 difference just for round numbers. So basically our price point, right now in Canby where I live, it's for instance, I have first time buyers looking in the 400 to 450 price point. And that's a first time home buyer price point here. And what they can get for that is nothing special. It's probably 1,500 square foot ranch style home on 6,000, 6,500 square foot lot, and dated, might be clean and livable, but it's not going to have the bright new cabinets, countertops, things like that. It's going to be, if it was updated, it's probably updated in the early to mid 90s. So you've still kind of got that 30-year-old cosmetics in the house. So, but that's for these folks is a 3,000 or better price because they're coming to the table with a small, minimum down payment. So I anything we can do for housing affordability, because these people work hard and, they're willing to do it. They can afford it. Obviously they qualify for it. Otherwise they wouldn't be able to be having these conversations and seeing these houses. They're pre-approved and everything's good, but it's painful. It's hard, especially when people work hard just for the average person with the average job. I think long term, it's a good thing. People buying houses is a good thing, but anything we can do to help these people, whether it's lowering energy prices, lowering gas prices, whatever it is to alleviate some affordability in the market that opens up people's confidence in investing and being able to make these mortgage payments, I think is going to be good. So even if it's not specific housing things, anything that can be done. Trump said he's talked about wanting to bring, the energy crisis and several other things. I think all of those will eventually trickle down into the consumer's wallet in a positive way.
The other thing to think about there's a lot of stuff that you just went through, but there's one part that is missing, and that's the fact that they don't have a ton of money to put down, so they're putting down the minimum, right? Well, the houses that they can afford are all houses that need work. Well, you don't have the extra cash to do the work once you buy it. And that's where I think the biggest struggle is going to be. I know I've got listings out there and like in the comments say, would you buy a house that needs work? Like I run into so many buyers. Like I just did this video the other day. I listed a house. It's 1,500 square foot, 2-story. We had it listed and it was move-in ready and it had all the pretties, not overdone. It just was something you could live in and say, hey, this is a cute house. We had it listed at $355,000. I had a 1,970 square foot home. So it was 400 square foot bigger, beautiful shape, good condition, good floor plan, 3 bedrooms, same bathrooms, 325. And it wasn't selling because it needed the updates.
Wow.
So it's 400 square foot bigger, 30,000 less, and nobody would buy it because too much work. And all it needed was flooring and paint and maybe appliances. So it needed 50, but if you put 50 into it, it's worth 100,000 more and people still weren't buying it.
That's wild. Yeah. And it's a cash equation. I think you're right. Could very well be that cash equation.
Hey, I would really need to put carpet in this house, but I won't have the money to. So I guess we're going to have to pass it up.
Yeah. Wow. Crazy. That is crazy. Which brings us to another topic. So we've broken down leave us a comment if you've been watching and talking about how Trump could impact the housing world, the housing market and real estate. I want to know what you think. Tim, we'd probably love to know what you think too. So leave us a comment. Let us know what your thoughts are. Would love to have you jump into this discussion. But the next thing I wanted to talk about is Let me stop sharing this, get this all figured out. So you brought up an interesting point. Are people willing to buy a house that needs work? And so I happened to see this article, which has to do with millennials. And millennials, we just talked about this, affordable housing and the cost of housing and people who want to buy, because, there's tons of research out there, which I'm not quoting it exactly, but the overall picture is people who have a property they own, even if they only own the house they live in, it's their primary residence, their net worth is multitudes larger than people who rent. And so there's a lot of reasons that buying a property, buying a home that you're just going to live in as your family home, or just you as an individual, there's a lot of upside to buying. And it's not a short-term investment. People, talk about that all the time. It is a long-term investment. Don't look at making quick money on real estate. It's rare that is even a thing. But millennials, we millennials. Tim, are you a millennial?
I'm a Gen Z, baby.
You're Gen Z or are you Gen X?
Gen X, sorry, Gen X.
Okay.
I got really confused.
XYZ LMNOP. It's okay.
Right, so I'm Gen X.
Which generation? Okay. I am an elder millennial.
47. I am 47.
Okay. Yeah. So I'm an elder millennial. So we talk about millennials a lot. And so millennials, and also the millennial generation, I think, if I'm not mistaken, the boomers are a huge generation. They own a lot of the real estate in the United States. But I think the millennials have come in as now they are the largest home buying population in generation in the United States. And so obviously there's a lot of focus on millennials and, that aspect driving the economy. And so this article is talking about how millennials are desperate for affordable homes and that they're willing to make surprising concessions. This is in the business journals. You can Google this article if you're curious about it. So Clever Real Estate says 21% of millennials believe their generation can afford a home. That's a decent amount of people. And so that's a decline from 52% who said the same early last year. So in 1 year, we saw 30% decrease in the confidence of millennials buying homes, which is really interesting. But it's saying that this article overall is that they are, if they want to buy a home, they are looking to make concessions into homes that might not be what they're ideally looking for, such as smelly houses, cigarette smoke. Maybe it's like pet urine smells that get, is permeated into the wood, or other things that are less than ideal. But the people that really want to buy a home and are desperate to do so are overlooking some of those cosmetic or those things that aren't so great, that when you walk into a house might be deal breakers for a lot of people. I don't know, Tim, what are your thoughts on all this?
Well, I was just going to interrupt you and be like, Jen. I mean, the thing about you can't always get what you want, that's a real thing, and you can always get what you want. And I think, expectations are put out there amongst our youth and even people our age and even older, they have expectations. And when they can't see their expectations being hit, it's a travesty. It's the worst thing in the world. And I feel like there's so many buyers that have these expectations that are so high that they miss out on great opportunities.
Yes.
And there's so many times they're just like, I want all this. And it takes 6 months for them to come to reality. And then when they come to reality, they missed out on a bunch of opportunities that were there 6 months ago.
Yes. And paint. And I ask people all the time when showing buyers, millennial buyers, and I'll say, okay, so the paint, it's a purple living room, and it's an ugly purple. I think we'd all agree this is an ugly purple. For instance, something like a weird color that doesn't seem to fit aesthetically. And the initial shock of, this is terrible. It changed, the lighting in the room, it's all wrong. And I said, well, a lot of it's paint. A gallon of paint is $50 at Home Depot for a halfway decent quality of paint. You can probably find it cheaper, but you could do this yourself. It's a few hours work. You could take care of this yourself. It'd be really easy to fix this to be a color that you are more in love with, and it would totally change the room. And so would $50 stand in the way of getting a house that is otherwise a really excellent opportunity for you? And as you do these upgrades, that, you've got, okay, so it's got 90s oak cabinets and it's got, Formica countertops, which if they're clean and functional, is it livable? And this is something you can do eventually. I bought a house that's built in 99. It still looks like 1999. Remember, in 1999, the style was Olive Garden chic or Tuscan, like, oh, look, we want to look like we live in the Olive Garden. So it's got the, brown counters and stuff. And it's not my favorite. We've lived there going on 10 years and we've not updated a thing because it's so expensive. And we would rather have this house and own it and build equity. We've built, without updating the house, I would say we've probably gained a couple $100,000 in equity since we bought this property.
Mm-hmm.
And if we make those updates, it'll be even worth even more. It'll be a lot more desirable. It'll be, we'll maybe have made a lot more if we decide to sell it. But it's like, if it's livable, then, and you can tolerate like cigarette smoke, depending on how severe it is, but it's like, don't miss out on the opportunity because it's cosmetically not what you want.
Yeah.
Is it more important to have the property, or are you trying to, like, you really, like, people need to ask themselves this question. Do you want a property, or are you just wanting to impress people because you have this beautiful updated kitchen?
Right.
That's something that only you as a buyer would be able to decide.
And I think that's like, the other thing is like when you go into these apartments, like you can rent an apartment. So buying's cheaper than renting, but renting, you can get all the new pretties for less money, but you're getting an apartment, you're getting less square footage, you're not getting a garage. So you're not really comparing apples to apples, but they want the pretties so dang bad that they'll deal with that, but they won't deal with owning their own home that maybe not be as pretty.
Right. 100%.
I mean, it's a serious problem. I like, and I call it a problem because I call things the way they are, and it is a problem.
Yeah.
Like people, their expectations and their wants outweigh reality, outweigh common sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. And again, if the idea is you're buying a house to impress people rather than having a housing security, there's several articles out there that talk about housing being a hedge against inflation. So if you're worried about, if you're renting a property and that's where your family lives and that's what you're doing, and you're frustrated about the fact that the landlord can raise your rent, depending on where you live. Obviously there's local laws and things that may, like in Oregon and in Portland specifically, there are specific laws that dictate when a landlord, how often they can raise your rent and how much it can be. But if you're tired of that unpredictability, that, if they sell the property and the new owner comes in and they're going to clean house and evict you, in some areas that might be possible or reality. Then you have to leave where you're paying a comfortable rent and either pay double or move to the next place. You buy a house, assuming that your principal and interest payment stays pretty much the same. That's not going to change, other than your taxes and your home insurance will be two things that could increase every year, but it's pretty predictable. And the landlord's not going to come and tell you that your mortgage, or the bank's not going to come and tell you that your mortgage is now $1,000 more a month.
Yeah.
Right. So,
and that's a real thing with rent goes up. And like the part that you said was, you could get kicked out of your place because they know they want more rent and they can't do it to you, but they can say your time's up, you're out.
Your lease is done. We're not going to renew it. We're going to, you have 30,
we're
60, 90 days.
And the next people are going to pay more. Yeah.
Yep. 100%. So
we don't have that. We don't have the laws on our investors. Like me personally, I don't know if I'd want to be an investor if someone's going to control my profits. Like that's the whole point of being an investor, is to be able to have the ability to earn money on your investment. Like they can't control the stock market. Like if it goes up, you get more money. If it goes down, you lose money. That's part of being an investor. So I'm glad we don't have that law here, but I know it was discussed at one point, but it got shot down pretty quick. Yeah,
it's interesting. There are laws here in Portland has, I would say, probably the strictest laws when it comes to landlords. I'm not an attorney or an expert in this subject matter, but my basic understanding of it is that if you own a property in Portland proper, you have to, and you have tenants, You have to give them notice, but you also have to pay them a relocation fee for them to leave your house. And it's dependent on how big your house is and how much that tenant will receive. Like, let's say the tenants can't be there because you need to remodel or you need to do extensive repairs that are not, they just can't be there. And then they have to leave. You would have to pay them a fee for them to go. So, that's again, my understanding of it is not, I haven't looked at it in a while, but there is something like that in the city of Portland that you have to pay.
That's interesting.
Yeah. It's quite interesting. So, for those who invest property in the area. So anyway, millennials, I would say don't sleep on the houses that you might deem to be ugly. Formica countertops, wood cabinets that are not in vogue right now. Everything goes out of style anyway. So if it's livable and clean and you can afford it and it fits the bill for you and your life, then don't sleep on it as an investment just because it's not exactly beautiful and perfect and checking every single box on the wish list. Think of it long term, and I think you'll be a lot happier with the results of that decision than missing out on great opportunities. Any final thoughts, Tim, on that one?
I agree. That's it. I think that's the main kicker is just be ready to sacrifice in some areas to get a great jump start on building generational wealth.
100%. So leave us a comment if you're a millennial out there and maybe you're going to be looking for your first home. Are you willing to buy the ugly house or the house that's not as pretty, that's livable?
And it may not even
maybe
be
it
ugly.
smells.
You know what I learned is, like, when I walk in a house, I have learned not to make any statements about the house.
Yeah,
because the
totally.
minute you do, it's like, oh, that wall's so ugly, and then they're like, oh, I actually like it. So it may not be ugly to
No,
everyone.
don't say anything like that. Yeah, exactly. Just wait and see what they say. See what kind of things they say. Perfect. Okay. So next, really, Tim, you've been in real estate for a long time. And so one thing I wanted to ask you to tell the people, since, the idea of this is to help educate consumers who are interested in real estate. You have 20 years of experience. What is one experience with a client, a story? This is a story time. Tell us a story about an impactful client experience where everybody learned something that you think the people should know and what they can learn from that particular experience.
Oh my goodness. I mean, I like to say about a specific story time is really tough because there's so many different stories, but I would say that, like, the most important thing for someone buying a house is to understand the emotions behind it. Like, sorry, there's my stupid auto power off. You have a huge investment that you're working on, and that you're either buying or potentially selling. Or one of the things lately that I've dealt a lot with is like a death in the family of some sort. So you said boomers earlier. That's one of my main clientele right now. It just seems to be a lot of the boomers are moving out of their house because they're either moving into a home or passing away.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's such a emotional purchase and sale. And so when you're writing an offer on a house, you always have to keep that in mind. I'm not saying don't lowball somebody. So I'll just go to this. I'll give you a story. Someone wrote an offer on one of my listings for $20,000. Well, for $15,000 less with, say, $5,000 in concessions, closing costs, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so we countered back full price, but we're still giving the $5,000 in concessions. And I get a text back from the agent saying, well, they took your counter at full price as a big FU. And I'm like, but we didn't counter at full price. We gave $5,000 in concession. That's the same as selling it for $5,000 less. Well, that's not how they looked at it. I did try and explain it. I'm like, well, did you? And so what happened there was they were very emotional, right? And then we came back and we gave another $5,000 off the price plus $5,000 in concession. So that's $10,000 off, and we met them halfway. And their comment back was, well, they're still pretty upset about it, so they're going to keep looking.
Interesting.
So what did I do? I said, sellers, you're willing to drop your price by $10,000 or $5,000. Let's drop the price $5,000 and let's get this thing sold. Okay, we're down
Yeah.
with that. We dropped the price $5,000, sold it 2 days later for 2,500 more than what the other people turned down.
Wow.
And you know what? I didn't call that agent because they walked away at a certain number. And I'm like, you know what? They don't want the house for this price. We've got a better offer on the table. Let's just get it done.
Yeah.
So now I know that agent's probably seeing that and saying, man, and those guys, they're going to struggle to find something as good. There's just not enough inventory.
Yes.
And so my point is, by being super emotional about something and not keeping the facts in play and making it more about, flexing your muscles. This goes for real estate agents and consumers.
Oh, totally. Totally.
You miss out on a great opportunity because you're just being too stubborn.
Mm-hmm.
And it goes to, I just posted a thing showing how buyers ask for closing costs and how, as a seller, you need to consider that. And you just consider that into your net dollar amount. The number of people that comment, I mean, it's sitting at like 43,000 views right now, and tons of comments, but there's so many comments that are saying, the comments are, well, I don't need to pay their costs. Why would I do that? And I'm like, well, you're netting the same amount. I said it in there. You raise the price by $3,000 and you give up $3,000. Well, I'm not, why do I need to pay it? This should be there. It's like, stop flexing your muscles, stop freaking out. Let's look at the facts that are on the table, because if you do that, you can miss out on a buyer on your property.
Exactly. And somebody that was otherwise, as agents, were charged with finding buyers who are ready, willing, and able to buy our listings. And or as buyer's agents, we're trying to find a property that fits the needs of our clients and that they can afford and that makes sense for them. And so what I often do in those situations to take the emotion out of it is say, well, let's get down to the numbers, buyer, of, let's say it's a $2,500 difference. Let's say it's a $500,000 house. What's the difference in payment on $2,500 over the life of the loan? It's really not that much.
$2,500 means more to the seller because it's $2,500 in their pocket. As to a buyer, it's $15 a month or $12 a month.
Or whatever it is. It's a negligible, often a very tiny amount of money in the big picture. And if that is your make or break point financially, is $10 or $15 or whatever, $25, then there's a bigger conversation there about maybe, is now really the right time to buy a house? And
or do we need to drop our price point?
Or do we need to drop our price point to be finding something that, is going to give you that comfort zone? But I think for $10 or $15 or $20 a month in your payment over the life of a loan, it's like, otherwise you're in love with the property, you love the house. It's, everything about it is what you want. Are you willing to lose out on this potential amazing opportunity for $2,500 in the big picture on a $500,000 property or whatever the price is? It's a lot more money. And so you have those conversations a lot and talk about the actual numbers, because the facts really, facts don't care about feelings. Facts are facts. And we have to, it's our job to make things fact-based and look at things from an analytical perspective. I think that helps me. And as working with buyers, that's how I like to approach things.
Does it tend to make you feel like half the time you're more of a counselor?
Yeah. Oh, totally. Yes.
Yeah.
I've had situations
real estate.
Very much. And they get upset at the seller and they're reading into situations that aren't actually there. I've seen that a lot, where there's a lot of there, because it is so emotional. Somebody falls in love with the house, and there are some people who, no matter what, see the other side as an automatic adversarial situation. Like if they're automatically our enemy, like we are fighting a battle against each other. And that's not the case. And have to bring people back to reality. We all want the same thing. They want to sell their house and they want to find a buyer. You want to buy the house from them. You are that buyer. We just need to come to a mutual agreement and do so in a civil fashion, because making things adversarial or fighting about it, or like egos, bringing our egos to the equation, it makes it worse, and it never helps the situation at all.
Totally agree.
Yeah. Well, I think that's a great lesson. I think that's a really good reminder for anybody out there, agents or clients alike, that just it's hard to not be emotional, because a house is so much more than a home. I say it a lot, but coming back to facts and just thinking rationally about things absolutely helps everything go smoother.
And the way we present a counter offer to a client matters. Like if she said, well, they're counter back at full price and this, and like, I don't know, that if you do that to your buyer, they're immediately going to mimic the way you act about it.
Yeah.
And so as an agent, we have to be able to really control our emotions too, because if we let our emotions get in the way, our clients are just going to feed off of that.
Right. And there are some situations that are truly ridiculous. and
100%.
And we all, like, we're all human, and we all get annoyed, and just there's some situations that are just like, okay, give me a break here. Too much. But at the end of the day, we do what we can in some situations. So anything you want to add to that? I think that's an excellent story. Thanks for bringing that insight.
Yeah. I mean, as far as you mean to the whole podcast?
Or yeah, I mean, at this point, I think we've covered everything. So well, how about this? Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to say, I'm excited for 25. I know if we go back to what Trump said, and I've been talking a lot about this during, I think, his rally right before inauguration, the day before, he called interest rates a national emergency. At the Chicago Economic Forum, he said that he is going to get rates down. And there's a lot of people that say a president doesn't have the ability to say that. The Fed is a private, not related.
Right.
But he consistently said, we have influence. We should have influence. I'm the president of the United States. I know more about business than a lot of people do. I should have some influence. And so if he can do, and this is not pro-Trump, not anti-Trump, this is, if he can do what he said he's going to do, then we will have lower rates. And I think the housing market will get really, really strong. I'm just hoping that it doesn't have an inverse effect on prices. But that goes back to what I said earlier. If you can lower the cost of new construction, you can counteract the increase in pricing. Because we saw prices go up in 21, 22, because the cost to build homes went up. If you can lower the cost to build homes, that resale house that's out there is not going to be more expensive than the same house that's new. Yeah. So if you can flatline that new construction price, maybe you can keep those resales at that same lower rates and keep pricing right in that same level at that 3 to 5% appreciation per year.
And that's great. That's amazing. Consistent appreciation, 3 to 5%. Double digits are definitely a unicorn situation, but consistently over time, 3 to 5% per year appreciation is nothing to shake a stick at. I think that's quite good and solid. So how can people find you if they want to connect with you and learn more about Iowa real estate?
Yep, I am right down there, Scheib Real Estate with the number 8 at the end of it. It's funny. I put that there because at the time, I think my TikTok handle wouldn't allow me to spell it out. So I just kind of stuck with it. So now that's me on Instagram, same TikTok, also on YouTube. And it's just Tim Scheib Real Estate on Facebook.
Awesome. Well, thanks for being here. And everyone, I'm Jennifer Schurter. I am a real estate agent in Clackamas County and the North Willamette Valley here in Oregon. So if you are looking to make a move around the Portland suburbs and are curious about what it's like to live here, I hope you'll subscribe to this channel. Tune into these podcasts every Thursday where we're going to talk about the current things going on in the real estate world. And otherwise, connect with me. You can find that information there in the description below. And otherwise, hope you'll give me a call if you're looking to make a move. I'm Jennifer Schurter, and I will see you next week. Thanks, Tim, and have yourself a good one, everyone. Take it easy.